Okay, welcome back. So we just talked about the importance. Now let's talk about some of the threats. There's only about 5 slides on this, so it won't take too long. Now, one of the main causes and what might be causing biodiversity is the increase of human population. Sure, humans can do a lot of great things, but we don't realize how we take up so much space. And when we find more places to thrive and live, we're actually displacing stuff that was already there. We're disturbing natural ecosystems that have been thriving on their own for years. Now, one thing we have to do is we need resources to survive and grow. So we have to find food sources. We need stuff to make shelter. And what we are doing is we are removing this at an unsustainable rate. It's kind of scary. Oh my gosh, I feel like this is such a depressing lecture. Now, the three greatest threats that I'm going to talk about are going to in this lecture will be habitat loss, overharvesting, and introduction of exotic species. I'm going to do a separate one on climate change. I know it's put in this section, but I'm just going to briefly talk about these three. And I know I've talked about them a little bit, but let's do a little bit more detail. So first off, habitat loss. So we are going through the process and we're taking over new areas all the time. And we are so dependent on technology where we were, able to rely on things naturally happen on our own. We are actually using technology to go through this. Now, for us, that's a benefit. We can do this, but other species cannot. So this is a video that kind of goes through that process right there. This is actually talking about how we're developing artificial ways to do photosynthesis. It's really cool. Now, once we remove an ecosystem, we actually kill off all the species in that area. Now, they only have certain ranges they can thrive in. So they either have to find a new home and adjust, or they pretty much die off. So it all depends on that. I remember seeing things where like a road expansion was supposed to happen, but they found this rare spider. So they're like, do we go around it or we just go over it? It's just a spider. It's a huge debate. Most of the time when we think about destruction of habitats, we focus on forests and stuff, but the water is actually too. We don't focus on how much rivers and streams are being modified by humans for land development, either by damming, channeling, or water removal, because we just do it what's convenient for us, but we actually don't think long term. Now, overharvesting is another big one because a lot of our species are aquatic and we use a lot of that for food sources. And we have been getting better about monitoring the fisheries. And there was a time there where we had overharvesting and where we're harvesting faster than the levels are being replenished. Now, we have this problem where we have what's called the tragedy of commons, where no fisher has a motivation to exercise restraint when harvesting because it's money. I like to watch The Deadliest Catch sometime, and I'm pretty sure once the crab tank is full, they go and deposit it and they come back. It's all about time and money. So it kind of makes you think about what's going to stop people from really taking more than their share. Now, we are seeing more fisheries are being managed by international resources, which is a good thing. And then we're starting to see areas start to do these areas where they're regrowing stuff. So this is an area where they're regrowing coral in a certain area that can then be replaced in other coral reefs. Coral's been really used for aquariums in the pet trade industry. So that can affect several species because that rely on that for that ecosystem. Bushmeat is another one brought up. Wild animals killed for food. I'm not a big avid hunter and all that other stuff, but it always breaks my heart when I see like the big wild game kills pictures that people post up and they're bragging about it. But people have to eat, and I understand that it happens, but we just got to monitor it. Now, the last one that is brought up in this section is invasive species. So these are species that were brought to an area, and ecosystems have their own way. This is my niche. This is my animals I want here, my plant diversity, and all that other stuff. Well, what happens with humans is we like to travel, and sometimes we bring things with us, and sometimes it's like, oh, that won't cause a problem, but sometimes it will. One big one, I especially think of a problem with pythons in Florida because people get them as pets and then they become too much work. So what do? They release them, and next thing you know, your dog is missing because it was eaten by a python out in the wild. And they have actually times of the year where they actually like promote going out and hunting for them. Now, we have seen plenty of them. The murder hornets was an invasive species that really caught some attention lately. Fire ants is a big one because fire ants weren't native to this area, but they were brought here, and now they're like, hey, I can survive here, and they kind of take over. Now, what can happen? You can have a dramatic population increase, and what it can do is now really disrupt the current ecosystem or a food web. So now that ecosystem has to adapt to it. Sorry. So this is a link to a list of invasive species, and then that asks you, why don't we kill them off? So this is a video that talks about the danger of actually killing off these invasive species. So here's your review videos, and the next one will be on climate change.